Authorities arrest gym chain Physical's director and his wife. The U.S. House of Representatives passes a bill that could lead to the closure of Hong Kong's economic and trade offices in America. And highlights of the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Customs officers have arrested two directors of the recently shut down fitness chain Physical on suspicion of contravening the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. Sources say the pair are the gym chain's founders, Look Ngai Kung and his wife. Police are also looking into whether fraud was involved in the case. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The 67-year-old male director, seen wearing a cap and a mask, was arrested by customs officers earlier. He was granted bail in the afternoon before being brought to the police station for further investigation. Sources say the man is Physical's director and founder, Look Ngai Kung. He reportedly arrived at the Customs and Excise Department headquarters on Tuesday evening to assist with the investigation before being arrested on suspicion of contravening the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. His wife, Ho Yok-hwa, was arrested this morning. This as customs officers searched the couple's residence at Layton Hill in Happy Valley. The department had set up a task force after the closure of the physical fitness chain last Friday to follow up on the situation. The Customs and Excise Department said that as of noon, they have received more than 900 reports related to the physical gym chain, involving $38 million. This as authorities contacted more than 500 of the affected individuals already. Fong Kun-ting of the Customs Department's Unfair Trade Practice Investigation said the fitness company continued to sell prepaid gym and beauty services and accepted prepayment from clients just a day before its closure. The fitness chain was also involved in the case of rent arrears after renting two retail spaces at CityLink Plaza from the MTR last year and failing to pay the rent starting in June. Meanwhile, the Consumer Council has received more than 2,400 complaints related to the gym chain, involving over $86 million. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The 9th Belt and Road Summit opened in Hong Kong today with some 6,000 participants taking part. In the summit's opening speech, Chief Executive John Lee said the city has the ability to play a more important role in the Belt and Road Initiative. Jackie Lin was at the event.
Jointly organized by the government and the Trade Development Council, the two-day Belt and Road Summit is being held at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center in Wan Chai. In his speech, Chief Executive John Lee said trade between Hong Kong and Belt and Road economies outside the mainland has increased by some 60% over the past decade.
Hong Kong, China, most open and international city, is perfectly positioned to play a pivotal role in realizing the visionary goal of the Belt and Road Initiative.
Government representatives from Belt and Road countries also noted Hong Kong's various strengths that can be leveraged.
Hong Kong plays a pivotal role in the Belt and Road initiatives, given its logistics, its airports, its financing.
Kazakhstan is located in the center of Eurasian continent. We would hugely benefit from increased trade volume. Through the help of Hong Kong, we can raise funding from outside.
The financial market in Hong Kong that is very well developed, very deep, could be basically shared with the region to educate the other region about the opportunities.
A representative from Beijing's Ministry of Commerce also stressed China's commitment to drive the SAR's trade and investment. Nearly 6,000 people from more than 70 economies attended this year's summit, including Vietnam's Deputy Prime Minister Nguyen Ho Binh. 4 memorandums of understanding were exchanged on anti-corruption deals, economic cooperation with Cambodia, and the deepening meteorological collaboration with the Solomon Islands. Apart from inviting foreign attendants to take the time to experience Hong Kong, the city leader also said the Belt and Road partnerships resonate with the spirit of the Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games, in which various Belt and Road economies go faster, higher, and stronger if they go together. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
A survey found more than 30% of students in primary 4 to primary 6 have experienced bullying. The survey was conducted by the Hong Kong Council of Early Childhood Education and Services in July. It included more than 270 students and over 100 parents and teachers. The study also found 40% of bullied students wanted revenge. About 15% of them think schools do not offer enough protection against bullies. Of the parents interviewed, about 30% said their kids told them they had been bullied. The organization that conducted the survey is planning to team up with other groups to set up an alliance to deal with bullying in schools, with a target of eliminating the issue within a decade. A psychiatrist said the impact of bullying is more severe to a person's development the younger it happens. She suggests setting up an anonymous channel for students to report bullying. A 17-year-old girl was arrested on suspicion of conducting 6 phone scams involving $478,000. All victims are elderly people aged between 74 and 93. An 82-year-old man reported the case to police on Monday. He said a caller, pretending to be a friend of his son, said his son was arrested by police and asked for $100,000 to bail him out. Someone went to his home in Chung Kwan O to collect the money. He later received another call asking for $200,000. Suspecting he had been defrauded, the man reached out to the police, who arrested the 17-year-old girl when she tried to collect the money in person. The city recorded 475 similar scam cases involving guess who I am tactics over the first half of this year. While the case count has plunged 60% year on year, police remind residents, especially the elderly, to take extra caution when picking up calls from strangers. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill that could lead to the closure of Hong Kong's economic and trade offices in America. The legislation must pass the U.S. Senate before it can be sent to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. The bill has drawn condemnation from the Hong Kong SAR government. Beijing has threatened to take countermeasures if the SAR's trade offices are forced to shutter. Jackie Lin with more.
Is laid upon the table.
With 413 votes in favor and 3 votes against, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office Certification Act, marking a crucial step on its path to becoming law. After this, the bill will be taken to the Senate for a vote. If passed, it will become law upon the U.S. president's signature. Within 30 days after the law takes effect, the U.S. will decide whether the 3 Hong Kong economic and trade offices in the United States can retain or lose its privileges. If U.S. authorities opt for decertification, the branches shall cease operation within 180 days. The SAR's 3 economic and trade offices in Washington, D.C., New York, and San Francisco were all set up in the 1980s before Hong Kong's 1997 handover. The United States passed a special law allowing the trade offices to be included under the International Organization Immunities Act. That exempts the offices from certain taxation and the search and confiscation of property from U.S. law enforcement officers. The Hong Kong government said the trade offices have been following local laws in their operations and criticized the bill's passage as politically driven.
There is no reason behind this purely political slander the law safeguarding the national security of Hong Kong and smear the human rights without any reason at all. We strongly condemn that.
The Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. expressed strong opposition and urged the U.S. to stop pushing the bill. It added that such attempts to politicize normal economic cooperation are doomed to fail. Meanwhile, several political groups took to the U.S. Consulate General in Hong Kong to protest against the bill's passage. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris engaged in a combative presidential debate in Philadelphia this morning, Hong Kong time. They clashed on the economy, immigration, abortion, and foreign policy as Harris put on a much sharper performance than President Joe Biden at July's Atlanta debate. Ahead of the November 5th election, the 2 candidates appear to be equally matched in battleground states where the result is likely to be decided. Nazvi Karim with more.
It started with a handshake, the first one in a presidential debate since 2016. And that's as cordial as it got.
Kamala Harris.
Trump was told by his advisor to stick to policy and hit Harris where the Biden administration had been weak, the economy and immigration. He partly succeeded, returning often to the immigration issue whenever he was on the ropes. Trump hailed his own tariff policies towards China, claiming Chinese firms paid billions of dollars to the U.S., prompting Harris to take aim at tariffs and Trump's COVID policies during his presidency.
He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military. Basically sold us out. With COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy.
Trump accused the Democrats of being a threat to democracy, while Harris brought up the former president's multiple criminal court cases.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
Trump hit back, saying the U.S. justice system has been weaponized by the Democrats to bring him down.
Those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department.
In a comment that had Harris shaking her head in disbelief, Trump said the millions of immigrants he says the Democrats allowed into the country are targeting people's pets.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
One analyst said Harris succeeded in rattling Trump.
So as the debate progressed, he just got a little bit less disciplined, and you could tell Kamala Harris achieved her goal of getting under his skin, and I think took him off his best debate game tonight.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Still ahead, top diplomats from the U.S. and the U.K. on their way to Kiev to meet Ukraine's president. Hundreds of prisoners in England and Wales released early to ease overcrowding in jails. And a man arrested on suspicion of stealing a cat from a Hung Hom temple. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and U.K. Foreign Secretary David Lammy have arrived in Ukraine today to visit President Volodymyr Zelensky. They will meet with senior government officials at what they say is a critical moment for supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia's invasion. The United States and Britain also formally accused Iran of supplying short-range ballistic missiles to Russia for its war in Ukraine, announcing new sanctions on Moscow and Tehran. Tracy Furness has more.
Boarding a train in Poland, in a city on the Ukrainian border, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy are making their way to Kyiv to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On the agenda are discussions on continued support for Ukraine's defense against Russia's aggression and how to ensure Ukraine can thrive militarily, economically and democratically in the long term. This after a briefing in London where the United States and Britain formally accused Iran of supplying short-range ballistic missiles to Russia to use in its war with Ukraine.
Russia has now received shipments of these ballistic missiles and will likely use them within weeks in Ukraine against Ukrainians. Russia has an array of its own ballistic missiles, but the supply of Iranian missiles enables Russia to use more of its arsenal for targets that are further from the front line while dedicating the new missiles it's receiving from Iran for closer range targets. This development and the growing cooperation between Russia and Iran threatens European security and demonstrates how Iran's destabilizing influence reaches far beyond the Middle East.
Pentagon Press Secretary Pat Ryder said these were unlikely to be the only shipments. The United States confirmed it will join EU countries in sanctioning Iran for providing missiles to Russia.
And we've been working with our allies to ensure that there is a significant consequence to this action. Later today, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany will announce their intent to suspend certain lucrative commercial ties with Iran and their state-owned business. We will supplement their action with our own sanctions.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Hundreds of prisoners in England and Wales were released early on Tuesday under the Ministry of Justice's emergency plan to ease overcrowding in jails. The scheme involves freeing up 5,500 prison beds. It applies to offenders serving sentences under 5 years, after spending 40% of their time in jail rather than the usual 50%. Prisoners released from Belmarsh Prison said they suffered from a severe lack of space inside. The plan has come under criticism from various bodies, including charities for women and children. They fear women and children may become the unintended victims of the emergency plan. Some who have been convicted of domestic abuse are thought to be among those set for release. Pope Francis arrived in Singapore today on the last leg of his four-nation tour of the Asia-Pacific after leaving East Timor. On Tuesday, Pope Francis gave a mass to an estimated 600,000 people. That's around half the population of East Timor. The seaside parks was the same field where Pope John Paul II prayed 35 years ago when East Timor was fighting for independence. Earlier today, on the last day of his visit to the country, the pontiff met with young people at a convention center in Dili. He reminded them to treasure their national historic heritage and urged them to carry it on with courage and reconciliation. Later, Francis landed in Singapore, arriving in one of the world's richest countries from one of its poorest. It's his last stop of his 12-day Asia-Pacific trip. Francis has no official program in Singapore tomorrow other than a private meeting with Jesuit representatives. A man has been arrested on suspicion of stealing a cat from the Pak Thai temple in Hung Hom. The cat has been found. The cat, which had been missing for several days, did not have any apparent injuries. Authorities have returned the cat to the temple carers. The cat went missing last Thursday. Temple staff alerted the police after finding a photo of a similar-looking cat on social media. The police later recovered the cat at a unit at Hung Hom Estate. One of two missing dogs believed to have been abandoned by two cooks from Po Lin Monastery on Lantau Island was found at around noon. The cooks remain suspended from their duties as an investigation into the matter continues. The monastery announced on social media that its staff members found one of the dogs at a catchwater in Shamwat East with the assistance of the local community. A medical examination will be arranged for the animal as soon as possible. The search for the other dog is ongoing. The animals were suspected of having been taken away by two cooks at the monastery last month and abandoned at Ngong Ping. Authorities have arrested the pair for alleged cruelty to animals. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.